Welcome back to Outlook Portland. My guest this morning is the Speaker of the Oregon House of Representatives and now candidate for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate, Jeff Merkley. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Jeff, thanks for coming back. You were here a couple months ago and we talked about your record as the Speaker, but you're here wearing another hat. You are now officially a candidate for the United States Senate. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
I want to jump into what I guess is the defining issue of our time and probably the defining issue of this race, which is the war in Iraq. What is your position on the war?
Well, ending the war in Iraq is my #1 priority. We have to end the war now. We have to start bringing our sons and daughters, brothers and sisters home, and we need to start doing so today.
You are Senator Jeff Merkley, no longer candidate Jeff Merkley, and you have now the power to vote. What steps, concrete steps will you take to end this war?
The first step is you have to pass a budget that has a defined timeline for bringing our troops home in hopefully 6 months, but no more than a year. That is the type of amendment that has been put forward, by the way, that Gordon Smith has voted against time and time again in recent months. Second of all, we need to engage diplomacy. We absolutely have to work with Iran. We have to work with Syria. We have to work with Turkey to make sure this doesn't become a broader war. Diplomacy under the Gordon Smith, George Bush period has been dramatically underutilized. Third, we have to keep funding the reparations or the repair of the country and the restoration of the infrastructure. But it has to be done through Iraqi contractors, not through American contractors, and not through American mercenaries. We have to build the infrastructure in Iraq through Iraqis. And we need to support the instruments of government, the parliament, the court system, and we need to do those things and not leave a permanent base in the country as we depart.
Brian Baird, a respected congressman from the state of Washington, 3rd Congressional District, not long ago toured Iraq, came back. He'd been a solid anti-war Democrat, and he announced a reversal on the question of the war, to the extent that he felt that if we left precipitously, there would be bloodshed and we'd leave a lot of our friends and allies in a bad position. He also said at a press conference that he thought we're making real progress under the surge. Do you agree with him? And if not, are you concerned that if we do leave on a timetable of 6 months to a year, that there could be a bloodbath?
Well, I think Brian Baird was misled by his trip to Iraq. When you go on these trips, you are shown what people want you to see. And what they wanted him to see was a country that was calming, but the statistics just don't bear that out. The amount of bloodshed, the amount of chaos continues. What the administration has done with the full support of Gordon Smith is to go in and thrash a stick around in a hornet's nest. Now, the hornets are going to keep buzzing whether we are there or not. It is not going to be a pretty scene. But having our men and women on checkpoints and on patrols sustains a sense of occupation that leaves America as the target and delays the Iraqis taking control and resolving the issues they have to resolve in order to go forward.
You're the former executive director of the World Affairs Council here in Portland, and during your tenure we had a lot of interesting public debates about foreign policy issues. Jeff, there's reports this past week of Turkish troops massing on the border with Iraq and the possibility of conflict between Turkey and the Kurdish north. Is this a real threat to destabilizing this region?
It is a real threat, and it has been something that's been in existence for a very long time. You have Kurds who are interested in a broader Kurdistan, and you have Turkey very concerned about the possibility of rebellious acts inside Turkey, terrorist acts inside Turkey, so they're very concerned about that cross-border area. This is where diplomacy is extremely important. This issue has been well managed for years, in which you've had an autonomous Kurdistan. There's no reason it can't be well managed into the future, but it requires attention.
On this point, there is the Congress apparently is taking up or planning to take up a question about the Armenian massacre, genocide. And there are many who think that it's the wrong time, given Turkey's position as a stalwart ally of this country. Do you think Congress should act on that or defer action at this time?
There has never been a good time to consider this resolution. It has been brought up year in and year out. But what this resolution constitutes is a reminder that genocide is unacceptable, whether in the past or whether in the future. The way that we really have to look is into the future and recognize that we need to undertake with every serious intent the clause never again, the phrase never again. And when we look around the world and see genocide happening, as we're seeing in Darfur today, the U.S. should be involved, collaborating with other nations so that one ethnic group does not exterminate another ethnic group.
Getting back to the conflict in Iraq, do you believe that this administration misled the American people into war?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I was suspicious of this from the very beginning. Richard Prohl and Wolfowitz were involved in this. Richard Prohl was in D.C. when I was in the Secretary of Defense's office many moons ago. And quite frankly, he tended to broadly exaggerate the Soviet threat at that time in order to support military spending. I think that we had incredible intelligence about Iraq. We had a no-fly zone in the north, a no-fly zone in the south. We had satellite intelligence, we had aerial intelligence, and Iraq was not posing a threat to its neighbors at the time we went in. A lot of information was put together in a bogus manner, presented to the public to sell a plan that was designed and laid out before 9/11. And it's a terrible, destructive shame, and it's a shame that we had a U.S. Senator who claims to kind of have a historical perspective, who did nothing to look into these issues and look for the real truth in what the administration was putting forward.
Jeff, we're coming to the end of this segment, and when we come back in segment 2, I want to ask you, in light of your statement about the country being misled into war, I'm going to ask you whether you believe that's an impeachable offense, and I'm also going to ask you more about Senator Smith's position on the war and your opponent Steve Novick's position. This is Outlook Portland. Please stay tuned.
Outlook Portland with Nick Fish is brought to you by Azumano Travel.